So the Texas Longhorns are set to take on Oklahoma State this weekend, and we need to talk about why that game is so big for the Texas Longhorns and what it could mean for the rest of their season, because even though the Longhorns have 2 losses, they still control their destiny within the Big 12 so long as they win out. Before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe we will see the Texas Longhorns bounce back after last week's loss against Oklahoma State? Let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though small, are massive to content creators such as myself. But with all that being said, let's talk about this game, because this is going to be a really intriguing matchup and a really important one in terms of how it will decide the Big 12 Championship. Right now, the Texas Longhorns are sitting with 2 losses. However, one of those losses came to Arkansas, who is a good team this year, and we know that now. Arkansas has been impressive throughout the entirety of the year, but more importantly than Arkansas being a good team, Arkansas is not in the Big 12. Texas's loss last week to the Oklahoma Sooners in the Red River rivalry, a game that is always filled with inexplicable happenings, and once again, that's what we got last weekend. That's their first loss within the Big 12. And right now, there are only 2 teams remaining within the Big 12 that are undefeated, the Oklahoma Sooners and Oklahoma State. So with Texas looking to take on Oklahoma State, if they can pull a win out in this game, all of a sudden they're right back into the driver's seat and making the Big 12 championship, which is really where they'd like to be. This game is going to be intriguing for that reason, but also the way the matchups will line up. Texas this year has a top 20 offense. The offense has not been the problem. Really, the only area on the offense in which more consistency is needed is along the offensive line. The Texas Longhorns are still moving dudes around along that offensive line to try and get that situated. But outside of that, Xavier Worthy has been impeccable for the Longhorns. He's someone who, before the year even came about, I was saying I thought he would be big for the Horns, not only in terms of personal production for him, but what he allows the Longhorns to do for everyone else. He is a legitimate deep threat, and when you have somebody with that legitimate deep threat that he has, you cannot disregard that threat. You must respect it, which is going to open things up for other talented receivers, but possibly, and more importantly, Bijan Robinson, who has been stellar through the early portions of this season. However, even though Texas is coming in here with a high-powered offense that has been impressive this year, Oklahoma State's defense has been pretty good through the early portions of this year. However, they have not played an offense like Texas's, so we will get a better indication of how good this weekend. Nonetheless, Oklahoma State has been successful in stifling opponents' rush attack, and that's something that the Texas Longhorns are going to look to rely on heavily, getting Bijan involved to open up everything else. But at the end of the day, luckily for the Longhorns, not only do you have Worthy, not only do you have Bijan, but you have a mobile quarterback who's been playing really good football for you. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. It's an interesting matchup in what it means for the Big 12, but also the stylistic approach of each school. Texas coming in with that top 20 offense, Oklahoma State coming in with a top 20 defense. However, on the flip side is where things get really interesting, because if we look at the battle of Oklahoma State's offense against Texas's defense, that's the battle of what each team doesn't do as well. For the Texas Longhorns, their defense has not been very good through the portions of this season. Tackling was a major issue against the Oklahoma Sooners, and that's something that they at least hope to have cleaned up going into this game, because that's at least one problem that as long as you wrap up and you at least limit their ability to move, someone else can come in and help you clean up that tackle, and you can mitigate some of those defensive woes by just completing the tackle. But even though Texas's defense hasn't been anywhere near where they would like it to be, Oklahoma State's offense has also struggled this year, ranking around 85th in the nation. So this game presents us with a matchup of a top 20 offense against a top 20 defense, and then a lackluster defense against a lackluster offense on the flip side of it, which can make for really intriguing matchups, and it's going to make it a really fun game to watch. Because at the end of the day, whoever wins this game puts themselves in the driver's seat for attempting to get to the Big 12 Championship. Because if the Texas Longhorns Longhorns are able to win this game, it is a step closer towards that championship game, so long as you win out. Now, the road won't be easy. There's still some really solid teams ahead for the Texas Longhorns that aren't going to just be cakewalks, but this would be a huge win and a huge step in the right direction. For Oklahoma State, a win against Texas would be big because Texas has had a high-powered offense through the early portions of this year. It would be a major confidence boost for the Cowboys, and it would put them one step closer to securing a bid at the Big 12 Championship, assuming they win out. This game right here is one that I think we really need to watch. It's going to be very interesting to not only see how this game shapes up because it involves so much on what will happen within the Big 12 Championship, but also to see how the Texas Longhorns respond after blowing a lead last week to the Oklahoma Sooners. If Texas can respond well, that's a good indication of where this team is. So I'm very interested in this game, but even more interested in hearing from you and what you think we will see. So hop down to the comments, let me know. That's it. See ya.